It's 2 in the morning in a Beverly Hills office building. Keisha is on her knees wearing a faded blue cleaning uniform that has seen better days. Her eyes are tired from working since midnight, but right now they're focused on something else. Her hands are moving in quick, careful motions, sign language, talking to a little Asian girl hiding under a desk. The girl is about 5 years old, wearing expensive silk pajamas that probably cost more than Keisha makes in a month. Tears are running down her small face. She's holding a stuffed rabbit tight against her chest. The child is shaking with fear, but she's watching Keisha's hands like they're the most important thing in the world. Outside, 3 black SUVs slam to a stop in front of the building. Car doors fly open. Men in dark suits rush into the building. These aren't regular businessmen. These are dangerous people. You can tell by the way they move, the way they look around the room like they own everything. Then he walks in. Mr. Park. Expensive suit. Gold watch that catches the light. His face is cold, emotionless. When he enters the room, the temperature seems to drop. Even his own men step back slightly. He's here for his daughter, the little girl under the desk. But something happens that stops everyone. The child won't go to him. Instead, she wraps her arms around Keisha's neck and holds on tight. This has never happened before. His daughter has never chosen anyone. She's usually quiet, almost lifeless with the people who take care of her. But now she's clinging to this stranger, this office cleaner she just met. Mr. Park's expression cracks for just a second. Shock. Confusion. His own daughter is choosing someone else over him. Then Keisha does something that makes every armed man in that room go tense. She looks Mr. Park straight in the eye and says words that no one has ever dared to say to his face. She tells him he's failing as a father, that his daughter is trapped, that keeping her isolated without teaching her how to communicate is wrong. The room goes dead silent. What made this struggling single mother risk everything to confront one of Los Angeles's most dangerous men? Stay with us to find out. But before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Tomorrow we're dropping another incredible story you won't want to miss. Your support helps us bring you more powerful true stories like this one. We want to give a special thank you to our amazing viewers watching from the United States, Australia, Mexico, France, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, Japan, Jamaica, and so many other countries around the world. You make this channel possible. We see your comments, we read your messages, and we're grateful for every single one of you. Thank you for being part of this community. Now let's begin. To understand how we got to that moment in the office building, we need to go back and look at 2 completely different lives happening in the same city. Mr. Park came to Los Angeles from Korea 20 years ago with almost nothing in his pockets. He was young, ambitious, and willing to do whatever it took to survive. He started at the bottom of the Korean organized crime world, running small errands, collecting debts, doing the dirty work nobody else wanted to do. But Mr. Park was smart. He was ruthless. He knew how to read people, how to find their weaknesses, how to make them fear him. Year by year, he climbed higher. He took over businesses. He eliminated competitors. He built connections that stretched from Los Angeles to San Francisco, from Seattle down to San Diego. By the time he turned 40, Mr. Park controlled a huge chunk of illegal operations on the West Coast. Gambling houses, protection rackets, smuggling operations, money laundering through legitimate businesses. He had hundreds of people working under him. His word was law in certain parts of LA. When he walked into a room, conversations stopped. When he made a decision, nobody questioned it. People were terrified of him. They had good reason to be. He lived in a massive mansion in Beverly Hills, the kind of house you see in movies. High walls, security cameras everywhere, guards at the gate. Everything inside was expensive. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, furniture that cost more than most people's cars. He had made it. He had everything a man could want. Except he had a secret that ate at him every single day. His only daughter, Minji, was born completely deaf. She couldn't hear anything. Not music, not voices, not even her own crying. Mr. Park's wife died the same day Minji was born. There were complications during the birth. The doctors tried everything, but they couldn't save her. Mr. Park held his wife's hand as she took her last breath, and minutes later, a nurse put his newborn daughter in his arms. He should have felt love. He should have felt protective. But all he felt was anger and blame. In his mind, this baby had killed his wife. This baby who couldn't even hear was the reason the love of his life was gone. His traditional Korean upbringing made it worse. In the world he came from, disabilities were seen as shameful. They were weaknesses. They brought dishonor to the family. And in his criminal world, any weakness could get you killed. Rivals would use it against you. Associates would see you as soft. So Mr. Park made a choice that would haunt him for years. He decided to hide his daughter from the world. Minji grew up in that big, beautiful mansion, but she might as well have been in a prison. She had her own room filled with expensive toys. She had nice clothes and good food. But she had no life. Mr. Park hired nannies to take care of her, but they changed every few months. He paid them well and made sure they understood one thing clearly. If they ever told anyone about his deaf daughter, there would be serious problems. The nannies were scared of him, so they kept quiet. But they didn't really connect with Minji either. They fed her, bathed her, put her to bed. That was it. Nobody taught Minji sign language. Nobody taught her how to communicate. She lived in complete silence, yes, but worse than that, she lived in complete isolation. She didn't go to school. She didn't have friends. She didn't even understand that other children existed somewhere in the world. When Minji tried to communicate, she would make up her own gestures, her own little hand movements that made sense only to her. She would point at things. She would act things out. But nobody really understood her, and she understood almost nothing about the world around her. To everyone in Mr. Park's business world, his family didn't exist. When people asked, he told them his wife and daughter had both died 5 years ago. He went to their meetings, made his deals, ran his empire, and came home to a daughter he barely looked at. Minji was 5 years old, living in a beautiful house, and she was completely alone. Now let's look at the other side of Los Angeles. Keisha lived in South Central LA in a 2-bedroom apartment that was falling apart. The paint was peeling off the walls. The pipes made weird noises. Sometimes the heat didn't work in winter. The building was old and tired, just like most of the people living there. She shared this small apartment with her 2 sons, 9-year-old Jamal and 7-year-old Darnell, and her mother, who was 68 and had bad knees that made it hard for her to get around. Keisha worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table and rent paid. Her main job was cleaning offices in downtown LA and Beverly Hills. She worked from midnight until 6 in the morning, moving from building to building with her cart full of cleaning supplies. She scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, emptied trash cans, and wiped down desks in offices where people made more money in a week than she made in a year. When she finished cleaning at 6, she went home, got her boys ready for school, then tried to sleep for a few hours. At 2 in the afternoon, she woke up and went to her second job at a grocery store, where she worked the register and stocked shelves until 9 at night. On weekends, when most people were resting, Keisha delivered food for a delivery app, driving her beat-up car all over the city, bringing meals to people who tipped sometimes and sometimes didn't. She was exhausted all the time. Her body hurt. Her feet were always sore. She couldn't remember the last time she'd had a full night's sleep. But Keisha never complained. She had her boys to think about. Jamal wanted to be a scientist. Darnell loved drawing and wanted to be an artist. They were good kids, smart kids, and she was determined to give them a chance at a better life than she had. What most people didn't know about Keisha was that she used to have different dreams for herself. When she was younger, before her sons were born, she was in college studying to be a special education teacher. She loved working with kids who needed extra help, kids who learned differently, kids who the world sometimes gave up on. Her favorite part of the program was learning American Sign Language. She took to it naturally. She loved the beauty of it, the way you could say so much with just your hands and face. She spent 2 years working part-time at a school for deaf children while she was in college, and those were some of the happiest days of her life. She would never forget the moment when a 4-year-old deaf boy she was working with finally understood that the hand signs connected to real things in the world. His face lit up like he'd discovered magic. He started signing everything he saw, so excited to finally have a way to talk about his world. Keisha cried happy tears that day. But life had other plans for her. In her 3rd year of college, she got pregnant with Jamal. The father was a guy she'd been dating for a year. He seemed like a good man. He talked about marriage and building a future together. When she told him about the baby, he disappeared. Just packed his stuff one night and left. She never heard from him again. Keisha had to drop out of college. She couldn't afford tuition and a baby. She moved back in with her mother and started working whatever job she could find. 2 years later, she met another man, got pregnant with Darnell, and that relationship fell apart too. By the time she was 32, the dream of being a teacher felt like something from another lifetime. College was impossible now. She was just trying to survive. But sometimes, late at night, when she was alone in those empty office buildings, pushing her cleaning cart down silent hallways, Keisha would practice her sign language. She would sign to herself, telling stories to invisible students, teaching lessons to empty rooms. It was the one piece of her old dream she hadn't let go of. She still remembered everything. Every sign, every grammar rule, every technique for teaching deaf children to communicate. So here were these two worlds existing in the same city. Mr. Park in his mansion with more money than he could spend, living with a daughter he treated as a shameful secret. Keisha in her cramped apartment with barely enough money to survive, dreaming of helping children nobody else wanted to help. Wealth without love on one side, poverty with purpose on the other. They should never have met. People from these two different worlds don't cross paths. They live separate lives, eat at different restaurants, shop at different stores, walk down different streets. But on one February night, everything changed. Their worlds crashed together in a way nobody could have predicted. And that collision would change both of their lives forever. It was a cold February night when Keisha got the call about a new cleaning contract. A big office building in Beverly Hills needed someone to cover for their regular cleaning crew who had quit without notice. The pay was better than her other buildings, and Keisha desperately needed the money. She was 2 months behind on rent, and her landlord was starting to make threats about eviction. She couldn't lose that apartment. Her boys needed a home. Her mother needed a place to live. So when they offered her the job, she said yes immediately. The building was fancy, really fancy. The kind of place where everything was polished and perfect. The lobby had real plants, not fake ones. The elevators were smooth and quiet. The offices had thick carpets and expensive furniture. This was where rich people worked, where big deals got made, where money changed hands in amounts Keisha couldn't even imagine. She started her shift at midnight, just like always. The building was completely empty except for one security guard sitting at the front desk, half asleep, watching a small TV. He barely looked up when she signed in and headed to the elevators with her cleaning cart. The first 2 floors went smoothly. She vacuumed, dusted, wiped down desks, cleaned the bathrooms, emptied the trash. She worked fast because she had 3 more buildings to clean before her shift ended at 6. She needed to keep this job, which meant doing perfect work, so they would hire her permanently. Around 2 in the morning, she was on the 3rd floor, working her way down a long hallway of offices. Most of the doors were open, making her job easier. But some were locked, and she had a master key to get in and clean them. That's when she heard it. A sound that made her stop pushing her cart and stand completely still. It was crying, but not normal crying. It was the kind of crying that sounded wrong somehow. Like someone was crying, but didn't really know how crying was supposed to sound. The sobs were too loud in some places and too quiet in others, with strange gaps between them. Keisha had heard crying like this before, back when she worked at the school for deaf children. Deaf kids often cried differently because they couldn't hear themselves. They couldn't regulate the volume or rhythm of their own sounds. She followed the noise to an office at the end of the hall. The door was locked. She put her ear against it and listened. Yes, someone was definitely in there, and they sounded scared. Keisha pulled out her master key, unlocked the door, and pushed it open slowly. The office was dark except for some light coming through the windows from the street below. It was a nice office with a big desk, leather chairs, and expensive decorations on the walls. At first, she didn't see anyone. Then she noticed movement under the desk. Keisha got down on her hands and knees and looked underneath. There, curled up in a tiny ball, was a little girl. She looked about 5 years old, Asian, with long black hair that was messy and tangled. She was wearing silk pajamas that were pink with little flowers on them, the kind that probably cost $100 or more. She was holding a stuffed white rabbit against her chest, squeezing it so hard her knuckles were white. The girl's face was wet with tears. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked absolutely terrified. Keisha's heart broke instantly. Whatever else was happening, this was a child who needed help. "Hey there, sweetie," Keisha said softly, using her gentlest voice, the one she used with her own boys when they were scared. "It's okay. You're safe. My name is Keisha." What's your name? The little girl didn't respond. She just stared at Keisha with those frightened eyes, holding her rabbit tighter. Keisha tried again, speaking a little louder. Honey, where's your mama? Where's your daddy? Are you lost? Still nothing. The girl was looking at her, clearly seeing her, but showing no reaction to her voice at all. That's when Keisha noticed something. The girl wasn't looking at her face when she spoke. She was looking at her mouth, then looking away, then looking at her hands. A thought hit Keisha like a lightning bolt. She knew this behavior. She had seen it 100 times before. Slowly, carefully, Keisha raised her hands where the little girl could see them. She signed. Hello. My name is Keisha. What is your name? The reaction was instant and powerful. The little girl's eyes went huge. Her mouth opened in surprise. She dropped the stuffed rabbit and started making frantic movements with her hands. They weren't proper signs. They were made-up gestures, a personal language the child had created because nobody had taught her the real one. But the message was clear. The girl was trying desperately to communicate. She pointed to herself, then made gestures showing she was lost. She made movements that showed fear, confusion, not knowing where she was or how she got here. Keisha felt tears forming in her own eyes. This beautiful little girl was deaf, and nobody had ever taught her sign language. She was making up her own signs, creating her own way to talk, because she had been left alone without the tools every deaf child deserves. It was like finding a child who had been locked in a closet for years. The isolation this girl must have experienced was heartbreaking. Keisha signed slowly. I understand. You're scared. I will help you. You're safe now. The girl watched her hands with complete focus, trying to understand. She might not know all the signs, but she understood that this stranger was communicating with her in a way nobody else ever had. Keisha signed. Stay here. I'm going to find help. She backed out from under the desk slowly, not wanting to scare the child. She pulled out her phone and called building security. Her hands were shaking as she dialed. This is Keisha, the cleaning lady on the 3rd floor, she said when the guard answered. I found a little girl in one of the offices. She's alone and scared. She's deaf. I don't know how she got here, but someone needs to come now. The security guard sounded confused and worried. He said he would make some calls and be right up. Keisha went back to the little girl under the desk. She got down on her knees again and signed. Help is coming. Don't be afraid. The girl reached out and grabbed Keisha's hand. Her small fingers held on tight. They sat like that for about 10 minutes. Keisha kept signing simple, comforting messages. The girl kept watching her hands like they were the most wonderful thing she had ever seen. Then Keisha heard the sounds from outside. Car engines. Multiple vehicles. Doors slamming. Lots of them. She looked out the window and saw 3 black SUVs parked in front of the building at crazy angles, like they had arrived in a rush. Men were getting out of the vehicles. Even from the 3rd floor, Keisha could tell these were not regular people. They moved with purpose. They wore expensive suits. They looked dangerous. Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell. The elevator dinged. Within seconds, the office door burst open. 6 men in dark suits rushed into the room. They had hard faces and cold eyes. They looked around the office quickly, efficiently, like they were trained to assess threats. When they saw Keisha on the floor with the little girl, they all tensed up. None of them said anything. They just stood there, waiting. Then he walked in. Mr. Park. Keisha knew immediately that this was the girl's father. They had the same eyes, the same shape to their faces. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than Keisha made in 6 months. His watch caught the light, gold and diamonds. His hair was perfectly styled. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. But it was his face that made Keisha's breath catch. It was completely cold, showing no emotion at all. His eyes swept the room, taking in everything, judging everything. When his gaze landed on his daughter, something flickered across his face for just a second. But it wasn't relief or love. It looked more like anger mixed with shame. One of the men started speaking rapidly in Korean. Another man, older and wearing glasses, stepped forward and spoke to Keisha in English with a heavy accent. I am translator, he said. Mr. Park wants to know how you found his daughter. He wants to know what you want. Keisha was confused. What I want? I don't want anything. I found her hiding under the desk, scared and crying. I was just trying to help her. The translator spoke to Mr. Park in Korean. Mr. Park responded, his voice sharp and demanding. The translator turned back to Keisha. How did you communicate with her? She does not speak. She does not understand words. She's deaf, Keisha said, standing up slowly, still holding the little girl's hand. I know sign language. I used to work with deaf children. More rapid conversation in Korean. Mr. Park's expression grew harder, more suspicious. Mr. Park wants to know if this is some kind of setup, the translator said. If you are trying to blackmail him. If you work for his enemies. Keisha felt a flash of anger push through her fear. Blackmail? I'm a cleaning lady. I was doing my job. I heard a child crying, and I helped her. That's all. Mr. Park stepped forward and spoke directly to his daughter in Korean, his voice commanding. He held out his hand, clearly telling her to come to him. The little girl looked at her father, then looked at Keisha, then did something that shocked everyone in the room. She moved closer to Keisha and wrapped her arms around Keisha's leg, holding on tight. She buried her face against Keisha's worn cleaning uniform and wouldn't look at her father. Mr. Park's face showed real emotion for the first time. Shock, confusion, maybe even hurt. His men looked at each other, clearly not knowing what to do. This had never happened before. Mr. Park barked something in Korean. Two of his men stepped forward, clearly about to take the child by force. That's when Keisha did the thing that everyone would later say was either incredibly brave or completely crazy. She looked Mr. Park straight in the eye and said, "Your daughter is deaf. She needs help. She needs to learn real sign language. She needs to be around other people. What you're doing to her, keeping her hidden away, not teaching her how to communicate, that's cruel. I don't care who you are or how much money you have. This is wrong." The room went dead silent. The men in suits looked at Keisha like she had just signed her own death warrant. The translator's face went pale. He hesitated, clearly not wanting to translate those words. "Tell him," Keisha said firmly. "Tell him exactly what I said." The translator spoke to Mr. Park in Korean, his voice shaking slightly. Mr. Park's jaw clenched. His hands formed fists at his sides. Everyone expected him to explode, to order his men to remove this woman, maybe to do worse. But he didn't. Instead, he looked down at his daughter, really looked at her. She was still holding on to Keisha, still refusing to come to him. But her face was different than he had ever seen it. Her eyes were bright, alert, alive. For 5 years, his daughter had been like a ghost in his house. Quiet, passive, barely there. But now, holding on to this stranger, she looked like a real child. A child with feelings and thoughts and preferences. Something shifted in the room. The energy changed. Keisha could feel her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone in the room could hear it. She had just called out one of the most dangerous men in Los Angeles. She had no idea who he really was, but she could tell from the way his men acted around him, from the expensive cars, from the cold look in his eyes. This was someone you didn't challenge. But she couldn't take it back now. And honestly, she didn't want to. That little girl deserved better. Mr. Park stood there for a long moment, just staring at his daughter. The silence in the room was heavy. Nobody moved. Nobody even seemed to breathe. Then Keisha did something even more shocking. She spoke again. "I can teach her," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "I know American Sign Language. I used to work with deaf children before life got in the way. Your daughter is smart. I can see it in her eyes. She's been trying to create her own language because nobody gave her a real one. But she can learn. She can have a real life. She just needs someone to show her how." The translator repeated her words in Korean. Mr. Park's eyes moved from his daughter to Keisha. He studied her for a long moment. She could see him thinking, calculating, trying to figure out what her angle was. Finally, he spoke. The translator said, "Why would you do this? You see what I am. You understand this could be dangerous for you. What do you want in return?" Keisha looked down at the little girl, still holding on to her leg. She thought about her own 2 boys at home. She thought about how she would do anything for them, fight anyone for them, give up everything for them. She thought about how this little girl had a father who had everything money could buy, but she was more alone than any child should ever be. "Because she deserves better," Keisha said simply. "Every child deserves better. I don't want anything from you. I just want to help her. That's all." Mr. Park's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. He had lived in a world where everyone wanted something. Everyone had a price. Everyone was playing an angle. Trust was a weakness that got you killed. People showed kindness only when they wanted to use you later. But this woman in her faded cleaning uniform, this stranger with tired eyes who made barely enough money to survive, was offering to help his daughter and asking for nothing in return. It didn't make sense to him. It went against everything he understood about how the world worked. He spoke in Korean to his men. They responded, clearly advising against whatever he was considering. Their voices were urgent, worried. But Mr. Park held up his hand for silence. He looked at Keisha again. "You will come to my home 3 times each week. You will teach her. But you will tell no one about my family. No one can know about my daughter. You understand this? If you break this rule, there will be serious problems for you." Keisha swallowed hard. She understood the threat behind those words. But she also understood that this might be the only chance this little girl would ever get. "I understand," she said. "I won't tell anyone. You will be paid well for your time," Mr. Park added. "I don't need much," Keisha said. "Just enough to cover the hours I'll lose from my other jobs." Mr. Park said something in Korean that made his translator look surprised. The translator said, "Mr. Park says you are either very honest or very stupid. He hasn't decided which yet." "Maybe both," Keisha said with a small, nervous smile. Mr. Park almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he nodded once and spoke to his men. 2 of them stepped forward, but gently this time, not threatening. They carefully separated the little girl from Keisha. The child started to panic, reaching back for Keisha. Keisha quickly signed. "I will see you soon. I promise. We will talk with our hands. You will learn so many words." The girl watched her hands, her eyes wide. She stopped struggling. Mr. Park noticed this. He saw his daughter respond to this stranger in a way she had never responded to anyone. One of the men gave Keisha a business card with an address in Beverly Hills and a phone number. "Tomorrow night," the translator said. 8 o'clock. "The guards will be expecting you." Keisha took the card with shaking hands. She watched as they carried the little girl out of the office. At the doorway, the child looked back at her one more time. Keisha signed, "Soon. I promise." The girl was gone. The men were gone. Mr. Park was gone. Keisha was alone in the office, still on her knees on the expensive carpet, trying to process what had just happened. She had just agreed to enter the world of a very dangerous man. She had just committed to keeping secrets that could get her killed. She had just taken on a responsibility that was way bigger than teaching a child sign language. But when she thought about that little girl's face, the way her eyes had lit up when someone finally communicated with her in a way she could understand, Keisha knew she had made the right choice. The next evening, Keisha stood outside the address on the card. It was a mansion. Not just a big house, but a real mansion with high walls, security cameras everywhere, and iron gates that looked like they belonged to a fortress. She pressed the button on the intercom. A voice answered in Korean, then switched to English. "Name? Keisha. I'm here to teach." She didn't even know the little girl's name. The gates opened slowly. A man in a suit was waiting for her at the front door. He didn't smile. He didn't introduce himself. He just said, "Follow me," and led her inside. The inside of the house was cold despite being beautiful. Everything was expensive: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork on the walls that probably cost more than Keisha would make in her entire life. But it felt empty, like a museum, not a home. There was no warmth, no personal touches, no signs that a child lived here. The man led her upstairs and down a long hallway. He opened a door to a bedroom that was bigger than Keisha's entire apartment. The little girl was sitting on her bed, still holding that white stuffed rabbit. When she saw Keisha, her face transformed. She jumped off the bed and ran to her. Keisha got down on her knees and signed. "Hello. I'm back, just like I promised." The girl made her own gestures back, excited and happy. "We're going to learn together," Keisha signed slowly. "I'm going to teach you real signs. You're going to be able to talk to people, to say what you think and feel. Would you like that?" The girl nodded so hard her hair bounced. The man in the suit stood by the door, watching everything. Keisha could feel his eyes on her constantly. She was being tested, evaluated, judged. One wrong move and she'd be thrown out. Or worse. But she focused on the little girl. She started with the basics. She taught her the sign for girl, and had her practice it. Then happy. Then rabbit for her stuffed animal. Each new sign made the child more excited. Within the first hour, the little girl learned 10 signs. She practiced them over and over, her small hands copying Keisha's movements. She was so hungry to learn, so desperate to communicate, that she absorbed everything like a sponge soaking up water. Mr. Park appeared in the doorway about halfway through the lesson. Keisha felt his presence before she saw him. The guard immediately stood straighter. Mr. Park watched silently as Keisha taught his daughter the sign for father. She had the girl practice it, then encouraged her to use it. The little girl looked at Mr. Park and signed father to him. He didn't understand what it meant, but he saw his daughter make a deliberate gesture toward him. Something in his expression softened, just for a second. After that first lesson, Keisha went to the mansion 3 times a week. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 o'clock. She would finish her grocery store shift, drive across the city to Beverly Hills, and spend 2 hours teaching the little girl whose name she finally learned was Minji. The first few weeks were hard. The guards watched Keisha constantly. The house staff treated her like she was invisible. Mr. Park would sometimes observe from the doorway, his face impossible to read. But Minji was thriving. Within 2 weeks, she knew 50 signs. Within a month, she could express basic needs: hungry, tired, thirsty, hurt, happy, sad. Within 2 months, she was having simple conversations with Keisha using sign language. For the first time in her life, Minji could tell someone what she was thinking. She could ask questions. She could share her feelings. The change in her was remarkable. She smiled more. She moved with more confidence. She seemed to grow bigger somehow, like she was finally taking up the space she deserved in the world. Keisha started giving Mr. Park updates after each lesson. At first, he would just nod and walk away. But slowly, he started asking questions. What did she learn today? Can she really understand all these hand movements? Is she smart? That last question broke Keisha's heart. This man didn't even know if his own daughter was intelligent because he had never given her a way to show him. She's very smart, Keisha told him firmly. She's one of the smartest 5-year-olds I've ever worked with. She remembers everything I teach her. She asks questions with the signs she knows. She's creative with how she combines signs to express new ideas. Mr. Park, your daughter is special. Not because she's deaf, but because she's herself. You just couldn't see it before because you weren't looking. Mr. Park didn't respond to that. He just walked away. But Keisha noticed that after that conversation, he started spending more time watching the lessons from the doorway. She taught him some basic signs so he could communicate with Minji. At first, he was reluctant, like learning sign language was beneath him. But one evening, Minji signed "I love you" to him, a sign Keisha had taught her that day. Mr. Park asked the translator what it meant. When he found out, his cold expression cracked. His eyes got wet. He turned and left quickly, but Keisha had seen it. After 3 months, Keisha knew she needed to push harder. Minji was learning fast, but she needed more than just lessons 3 times a week. She needed to be around other deaf children. She needed to go to a real school. She needed to have friends and experiences, and a life outside this big, empty house. One Friday evening, after the lesson was done, Keisha asked to speak with Mr. Park. They sat in his office, a room full of expensive furniture and locked filing cabinets that probably contained secrets that could destroy lives. Minji needs to go to school, Keisha said directly. There's a great school for deaf children in Los Angeles. She needs to be around other kids like her. She needs friends. She needs to go outside and play. She needs a normal childhood. Mr. Park's face went hard. No, it's not safe. People cannot know about her. What you do for work is your business, Keisha said, her voice firm. But what you do as a father, that's about being human. Money can't buy her a childhood. Keeping her locked up can't protect her from everything. She needs more than what you're giving her. No one had ever spoken to Mr. Park like this. Not his associates, not his employees, not even his closest advisors. They were all too afraid of him. But Keisha had something none of them had. She genuinely didn't want anything from him except what was best for his daughter. She wasn't trying to gain power or money or protection. She just wanted this little girl to have a chance at happiness. That made her either the bravest person Mr. Park had ever met or the most foolish. He still hadn't decided which. I will think about it, he said finally. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. For now, that was enough. Over the following months, something unexpected started to happen. A friendship began to form between 2 people who should never have connected. Mr. Park started asking Keisha questions that had nothing to do with Minji's lessons. At first, they were small questions. Where did she learn sign language? How long had she been a cleaner? Did she like the work? Keisha answered carefully at first, not sure where these conversations were going. But gradually she opened up. She told him about her life. About her two sons who were good kids trying hard in school despite all the challenges. About her mother whose knees hurt so badly some days that she could barely walk. About the 3 jobs she worked just to keep everyone fed and housed. She told him about her dream of becoming a teacher, about how she had to drop out of college when she got pregnant, about how sometimes she practiced signing to empty offices late at night, remembering when she thought she would spend her life helping children. Mr. Park listened to all of this. He didn't say much, but he listened. One evening, after a lesson, he asked her, "Do you have enough money? For your family?" Keisha stiffened. "We manage. We always manage." "That's not what I asked." Keisha was quiet for a moment. Then she said honestly, "No, I'm behind on rent. My car needs repairs I can't afford. My youngest son needs glasses, but I'm waiting until I can save up enough. My mother needs medicine that's expensive, but we're surviving. We've survived worse." "I could help," Mr. Park said. "No," Keisha said immediately. "Thank you, but no. I take care of my own family." "Why?" Mr. Park looked genuinely confused. "I have money. You need money. This is simple." "Because I don't want to owe you," Keisha said bluntly. "I'm teaching Minji because it's the right thing to do, because she deserves to have a voice, not because I want something from you. If you start giving me money, that changes everything. Then I'm working for you. Then I owe you. I don't want that." Mr. Park stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. In his world, everyone had a price. Everyone wanted something. Money solved everything. But this woman was refusing his help, refusing his money, insisting on struggling through poverty rather than accepting what would be easy for him to give. "You have strange pride," he said finally. "Maybe," Keisha agreed. "But it's mine. It's all I've got sometimes." Mr. Park didn't understand it, but he respected it. This woman had nothing, yet she held on to her dignity like it was worth more than gold. As more time passed, Mr. Park noticed changes in his daughter that went beyond just learning sign language. Minji smiled all the time now. She ran to him when he came home instead of hiding. She tried to tell him about her day using the signs she knew, even though he only understood a few of them. She was becoming a real person in front of his eyes. Not a shameful secret, not a reminder of failure. Just a little girl who was smart and funny and full of life. Keisha kept pushing him. She brought books about deaf culture. She talked about deaf schools and deaf communities. She explained that being deaf wasn't a disability to hide. It was just a different way of experiencing the world. "Minji doesn't need to be fixed," Keisha told him one day. "She's not broken. She just needs the right tools and the right support. She needs you to be proud of her, not ashamed." Those words hit Mr. Park hard. Ashamed. That's exactly what he had been. Ashamed of his own daughter. He started making small changes. He learned more signs. He spent more time with Minji. He started to see her the way Keisha saw her, as a bright, capable child with unlimited potential. Then everything changed on one terrible afternoon. It was a Wednesday. Keisha arrived at the mansion at the usual time for Minji's lesson. The guards at the gate knew her now and waved her through. She parked her old car next to the luxury vehicles in the driveway and went inside. Minji was in the backyard. It was a beautiful day, sunny and warm, and Keisha had convinced Mr. Park to let his daughter spend more time outside. They were going to have their lesson on the grass, practicing signs about nature and animals. Keisha and Minji were sitting under a tree, working on the signs for different birds, when Minji suddenly looked toward the back wall of the property. Her eyes went wide with fear. Keisha turned to look. 3 men were climbing over the wall. They wore masks and moved fast. Everything happened in seconds. Keisha's brain understood immediately what was happening. These men were here to take Minji. Someone had found out about Mr. Park's daughter. Someone was going to use her as leverage against him. Keisha didn't think. She just acted. She grabbed Minji and pushed her behind her own body, putting herself between the child and the men rushing toward them. "Run!" Keisha screamed, even though Minji couldn't hear her. She signed frantically. "Run! House! Now!" But Minji was frozen with fear. She couldn't move. The 3 men reached them. One of them tried to grab Minji. Keisha threw herself at him, pushing him back. She wasn't a fighter. She had no training. But she was a mother, and every mother has the instinct to protect children. One of the men shoved Keisha hard. She fell to the ground. Another one kicked her in the ribs. She felt something crack inside her chest. The pain was sharp and terrible, but she didn't move away from Minji. She stayed between the child and the attackers, even as they hit her again. Her arm twisted at a wrong angle when she fell the second time. The pain was so bad she almost passed out. She could hear alarms going off. The security guards had seen what was happening. They were running toward the backyard, shouting, pulling out weapons. The kidnappers realized they were out of time. They ran back toward the wall, climbing over it and disappearing. Keisha lay on the grass, her arm bent wrong, her ribs screaming with pain, struggling to breathe. But Minji was safe. The little girl was crying, signing help, 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 over and over, the way Keisha had taught her. Security guards surrounded them. Someone called an ambulance. Someone else called Mr. Park. Keisha tried to stay conscious, tried to comfort Minji with signs, but the pain was too much. Everything went dark. She woke up in a hospital. Her arm was in a cast. Her ribs were wrapped tightly. Every breath hurt. A doctor was standing next to her bed, explaining that she had a broken arm and 3 cracked ribs. She would recover, but it would take time. Then she saw Mr. Park standing in the corner of the room. His face was different than she had ever seen it. His eyes were red. His jaw was tight. He looked like he was holding back an ocean of emotion. When he saw she was awake, he walked over to her bed. He stood there for a long moment, just looking at her. Then he did something Keisha never expected. This powerful man, this crime boss who ruled through fear, this person who had spent 20 years building an empire of violence, he cried. Tears ran down his face. His shoulders shook. He tried to speak, but couldn't get words out. Finally, he managed to say, "You almost died. For my daughter. You owe me nothing. You barely know her. But you put your body between her and danger. You took pain meant for her. Is she okay?" Keisha asked, her voice weak. "She's safe. She's home with extra guards. She won't stop asking about you. She's terrified you won't come back." "I'll come back," Keisha said. "When I heal, I'll come back." "Why?" Mr. Park asked, his voice breaking. "Why would you do this? Risk your life for a child who isn't yours? For the daughter of a man like me?" "Because she needed me," Keisha said simply. "Because in that moment, I was all that stood between her and something terrible. What else was I supposed to do? Let them take her? I couldn't. I wouldn't." Mr. Park sat down in the chair next to her bed. He put his face in his hands. His whole body shook with sobs he had probably been holding in for years. "I have spent my whole life being strong," he said quietly. "Being feared. Being powerful. I have money. I have men who follow my orders. I have controlled so much. But I couldn't protect my own daughter. You have nothing. No weapons. No power. No army. Just a good heart. And you protected her when I failed." "That's not true," Keisha said. "You're protecting her now. You've been changing. I see it. You spend time with her. You learn her language. You're becoming the father she needs." "Because you showed me how," Mr. Park said. "You showed me what courage really looks like. Not violence. Not power. Just doing what's right even when it's dangerous. Even when it costs you everything." They sat in silence for a while. The powerful crime boss and the struggling cleaning lady. 2 people from completely different worlds who had found an unexpected connection through one little deaf girl. Finally, Mr. Park spoke again. "Things are going to change. I'm making decisions. Big ones. Dangerous ones. But necessary ones." "What kind of decisions?" Keisha asked. "The kind that will let my daughter live in the light instead of the shadows," he said. "The kind that will let her go to school and have friends and not live in fear. The kind that will make me into someone she can be proud of instead of ashamed of." Keisha understood what he was saying without him having to spell it out. He was going to leave his criminal life. He was going to risk everything to give his daughter a real future. "That's going to be dangerous," she said. "Yes," he agreed. "But you taught me something. You taught me that real strength is protecting the people you love, no matter what it costs. You almost died for my daughter. I can at least be brave enough to give her a better life." Over the next few days in the hospital, Keisha learned what had happened. A rival organization had discovered that Mr. Park had a daughter. They had planned to kidnap her and use her to force Mr. Park to give them territory and money. But they hadn't expected the cleaning lady to fight back like a warrior. They hadn't expected someone with no training and no weapons to stand her ground. The security guards had captured one of the attempted kidnappers. He was talking to the police now, giving information about the organization that sent him. But more importantly, Mr. Park was talking to federal agents. He was making deals. He was offering information about organized crime operations in exchange for immunity and protection for himself and his daughter. It would take time. It would be complicated and dangerous. But he was committed to walking away from the life he had built. All because a single mother who cleaned offices for a living showed him what real courage looked like. Keisha spent 2 weeks recovering in the hospital. Her arm healed slowly. Her ribs hurt every time she breathed. But the physical pain wasn't what kept her up at night. She kept thinking about Minji, wondering if the little girl was okay, if she understood why Keisha hadn't come back yet. Mr. Park visited her every single day. Sometimes he brought flowers. Sometimes he just sat quietly in the chair next to her bed. He was different now. The cold, hard expression he used to wear like armor was gone. He looked tired, but also more human somehow. On her last day in the hospital, he told her what he was planning to do. "I'm leaving," he said simply. "Leaving where?" Keisha asked. "My life. The business. Everything I built over 20 years. I'm walking away from all of it." Keisha stared at him. She knew enough about his world to understand what he was saying. You don't just quit organized crime. People who try to leave usually end up dead. It's not a job you resign from with a 2-week notice. "That's impossible," she said. "They won't let you go. You know too much. You've seen too much." "You're right," Mr. Park agreed. "If I just tried to walk away, I would be killed within a week. My daughter would probably be killed too, to make sure there were no loose ends. So I'm not just walking away. I'm making a deal." He explained his plan. He had hired lawyers. Not the criminal lawyers he usually used, but different ones. Federal lawyers. They had been secretly meeting with FBI agents and federal prosecutors for the past week. Mr. Park was offering to tell them everything. Every illegal operation he knew about. Every corrupt official on his payroll. Every location where criminal activities happened. Every name of every person involved in organized crime on the West Coast. In exchange, he wanted complete immunity from prosecution. He wanted protection for himself and his daughter. He wanted a clean slate to start over. "This will take years," he said. "Maybe 2 years, maybe more. It's not something that happens fast. I have to give them information slowly, carefully. I have to testify in court cases. I have to help them build cases against very dangerous people. And during all of this, I have to pretend nothing has changed. I have to keep running my businesses like normal so nobody gets suspicious." "That sounds incredibly dangerous," Keisha said. "It is. If anyone finds out what I'm doing before the federal agents are ready to move, I'm dead. Minji is dead. Maybe you're dead too, just for being connected to us. So why are you telling me?" Mr. Park was quiet for a long moment. "Because you deserve to know the risk you're taking by staying in our lives. Because you've been honest with me, and I owe you honesty back. Because," he paused, struggling with words, "because you're my friend. I think that's what this is. I've never had a real friend before. Everyone in my life either worked for me or feared me or wanted something from me. But you're different." Keisha felt tears forming in her eyes. This dangerous man, this person who had done terrible things, was showing her a vulnerability that probably no one else had ever seen. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really? Tell me the real reason." Mr. Park looked at his hands. "Because you almost died protecting my daughter. Because you showed me what real courage looks like. For 20 years, I thought power meant being the most dangerous person in the room. I thought strength meant making people afraid of you. I thought protecting my family meant hiding them away from the world." He looked up at her, and his eyes were wet with tears. "But you protected Minji with no weapons, no power, nothing but your own body and your good heart. You risked everything for a child who wasn't even yours. You stood up to me when everyone else was too scared. You told me the truth about how I was failing as a father when no one else would dare. You taught me more than you taught my daughter," he continued. "You taught me what bravery really means. You taught me what goodness looks like. You taught me that the strongest thing a person can do is care about someone else more than they care about themselves." Mr. Park wiped his eyes. "My daughter deserves better than a father who's ashamed of her. She deserves to go to school. She deserves to have friends. She deserves to live in the light, not hidden in shadows. And I can't give her those things while I'm still living the life I've been living." "What if it doesn't work?" Keisha asked. "What if the deal falls through? Then I die trying to give my daughter a better life. That's still better than living the way I have been, rich and powerful but empty inside, with a daughter who was afraid of me. Keisha reached out with her good hand and squeezed his hand. You're a good father. You're becoming a good father. There's a difference, and you're learning it. Over the next 2 years, Mr. Park lived a double life. To the outside world, to his associates and competitors, everything looked normal. He ran his businesses. He attended meetings. He made decisions. He acted like the same cold, powerful crime boss he had always been. But secretly, he was feeding information to federal authorities. He wore wires to meetings. He recorded conversations. He provided documents and evidence. He helped them understand the structure of organized crime networks that had existed for decades. It was the most dangerous thing he had ever done. Every day, he knew that one slip, one wrong word, one person getting suspicious could end with a bullet in his head. But he kept going. For Minji. For the future he wanted to give her. During those 2 years, Keisha kept teaching Minji. Her arm healed. Her ribs stopped hurting. She went back to her 3 jobs. But now 3 evenings a week were reserved for the little girl who had become so important to her. Minji was thriving. She was learning so fast that Keisha had to work hard to keep up with her questions. The little girl wanted to know everything. She wanted signs for every object, every feeling, every idea. Her mind was hungry for knowledge after years of having no way to express herself. Mr. Park changed too. He spent every free moment with his daughter. He practiced sign language until his hands were sore. He learned to read her expressions, to understand her moods, to be present with her in a way he never had been before. Keisha watched him transform from a man who had seen his daughter as a shame into a father who was proud of everything she was. Finally, after 2 years of careful planning and dangerous secrets, the federal authorities were ready to move. In one coordinated operation across 3 states, they arrested dozens of people involved in organized crime. They shut down illegal operations. They seized assets. They dismantled networks that had existed for generations. Mr. Park's former associates were shocked and furious. They had trusted him. They had worked with him for years. And he had betrayed them all. There were threats against his life. There were contracts put out on him. But he was under federal protection now. He had built his deal carefully, with layers of security and legal protection that made him nearly untouchable. The most surprising part was what happened to his legitimate businesses. It turned out that about 40% of Mr. Park's empire was actually legal. Real estate investments, import-export companies, restaurants. These businesses were clean, profitable, and completely separate from the criminal operations. He kept those businesses. He expanded them. He poured his energy and intelligence into building something legal and lasting for his daughter's future. People who had known him in his criminal life couldn't believe the transformation. The cold, ruthless crime boss had become a legitimate businessman who followed the law and paid his taxes. But the people who knew the real story, Keisha, the federal agents who worked with him, the lawyers who helped him, they understood. He hadn't really changed who he was. He had just finally become brave enough to be who he should have been all along. A good father, an honest man, someone his daughter could be proud of. Fast forward to today. Minji is now 15 years old. If you saw her walking down the street, you would see a confident, happy teenager with a bright smile and quick hands that move constantly as she signs to her friends. She attends the California School for the Deaf in Riverside, one of the best schools for deaf students in the entire country. She's not just attending, she's excelling. Her grades are excellent. She's on the volleyball team. She's part of the drama club. She has a tight group of friends who communicate in sign language as naturally as other teenagers talk. Minji is fluent in American Sign Language. She can carry on complex conversations about anything from her favorite movies to her thoughts about social issues. She can also read and write in English at a level that impresses her teachers. She's bilingual, ASL and English, and she's learning Korean Sign Language too, wanting to connect with her father's heritage. But what's most remarkable about Minji isn't her academic success or her language skills. It's her joy. She laughs easily. She has opinions about everything and isn't afraid to share them. She dreams big dreams about her future. She wants to be a doctor. Specifically, she wants to specialize in helping deaf children and their families. She wants to be the person for other families that Keisha was for her. Someone who shows parents that their deaf child can do anything, be anything, achieve anything. Too many parents see their deaf child and think it's the end of something. Minji signs when asked about her dream. I want to show them it's actually the beginning. Being deaf isn't a tragedy. It's just a different way of experiencing life. And it's a beautiful way. She's already volunteering at a local community center, helping younger deaf children learn sign language. At 15, she's becoming a teacher herself, passing on what Keisha taught her all those years ago. Minji has friends who are deaf and friends who can hear. She moves between both worlds easily. She's comfortable with who she is. There's no shame, no hiding, no feeling like she's less than anyone else. When you see her with her father, the love between them is obvious. Mr. Park learned sign language fluently over the years. He can communicate with his daughter about anything. They have real conversations now. They disagree sometimes, the way all parents and teenagers do. They laugh together. They hug. He goes to all her volleyball games. He embarrasses her sometimes by cheering too loud. He takes pictures constantly, making up for all the years he missed. Mr. Park himself is almost unrecognizable from the man he was 8 years ago. He's 50 years old now, and he runs a successful business empire, but a legal one. His real estate investments have made him wealthy. His import company brings Korean goods to American markets. His restaurants are popular throughout Los Angeles. He's known in the business community as tough but fair. He's respected, not feared. People want to work with him because he's smart and honest, not because they're afraid of what will happen if they don't. But what he's most proud of isn't his business success. It's the work he does in his free time. 3 evenings a week, Mr. Park volunteers at community centers in Koreatown. He meets with Korean immigrants who are new to America, who are struggling to find legal ways to succeed, who are tempted by the same criminal shortcuts he once took. He tells them his story. Not all of it. Some details are still too dangerous to share, but enough. He tells them about the life he built through crime, and how empty it was. He tells them about almost losing his daughter because of the choices he made. He tells them that the hard way is actually the better way. I had everything money could buy, he tells them in Korean. Big house, expensive cars, power, respect through fear. But I was poor in the ways that mattered. I couldn't talk to my own daughter. I couldn't sleep at night without nightmares. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. He helps connect immigrants with job opportunities, with English classes, with legal resources. He uses his business connections to create legitimate opportunities for people who might otherwise turn to crime out of desperation. He's trying to prevent others from making his mistakes, trying to save people from the life that nearly destroyed him. Some of his former associates are in prison now, serving long sentences based partly on his testimony. A few of them have sent messages saying they'll kill him when they get out. He takes the threats seriously, still has security, still looks over his shoulder sometimes. But he doesn't regret what he did. Not for a second. I sleep well now, he says simply. My daughter is proud of me. That's worth any risk. Keisha's life changed too, in ways she never expected. For years, she refused to let Mr. Park help her financially. She kept working her 3 jobs, kept struggling, kept insisting she didn't want his money. But after he completed his deal with the federal government, after he had fully left his criminal life behind, he came to her with a different proposal. I'm not offering charity, he said. I'm offering friendship. Friends help friends. You helped me save my daughter's life and my own soul. Let me help you achieve your dream. He offered to pay for her to go back to school. Not as payment, not as debt, but as a gift from one friend to another. Keisha finally accepted. It took her 3 years of night classes while still working during the day, but she earned her teaching certification. She specialized in deaf education, just like she had always planned. Today, Keisha is a teacher in the Los Angeles Unified School District. She works with deaf and hard-of-hearing students, giving them the tools they need to succeed. She teaches sign language. She teaches English. She teaches them that being deaf doesn't limit what they can become. She loves her job. Every single day, she gets to do what she was meant to do. She helps children find their voices, just like she helped Minji all those years ago. Her 2 sons are grown now. Jamal is 23, studying biochemistry at UCLA. He wants to be a research scientist. Darnell is 21, attending art school and already having his work shown in small galleries around Los Angeles. Both boys grew up watching their mother work herself to exhaustion for them. Both saw her sacrifice everything so they could have opportunities. And both saw her kindness toward Minji, how she helped a child who wasn't her own just because it was the right thing to do. They learned from her example. Jamal volunteers teaching science to underprivileged kids. Darnell donates his art to charity auctions. They're good men because they had a good mother. Keisha's mother passed away 2 years ago, her knees finally giving out after a lifetime of hard work. But she died proud, having seen her daughter become a teacher and her grandsons heading to college. The two families, Mr. Park's and Keisha's, are deeply connected now. They celebrate holidays together: Korean New Year and Christmas, Thanksgiving and Chuseok. They blend traditions from both cultures, creating something new and beautiful. Minji, Jamal, and Darnell are like cousins. They grew up together, celebrate birthdays together, support each other through challenges. The fact that they came from completely different backgrounds, different races, different worlds, none of that matters. They're family in all the ways that count. When people see them together, the former Korean crime boss, the black single mother turned teacher, and all their children, they see something unusual. Something that shouldn't exist based on how the world usually works. But what they're really seeing is proof of something powerful. They're seeing what happens when people choose kindness over fear. When they choose to see each other as human beings instead of categories or stereotypes. When they choose to build bridges instead of walls. This unlikely friendship, built on the foundation of one woman's decision to help a scared little deaf girl in an office building, changed everything for everyone involved. Mr. Park found his humanity again. Minji found her voice and her future. Keisha found her dream career. And all of them found a family they never expected but desperately needed. Sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the people who change your life look nothing like you, come from completely different backgrounds, live in totally different worlds. But if you're open to it, if you're willing to see people for who they really are instead of what they appear to be, magic can happen. That's exactly what happened here. Magic born from kindness, watered by courage, and grown into something that changed multiple lives forever. This story isn't just about what happened to one crime boss, and one cleaning lady, and one deaf girl. It's about lessons that all of us can learn and apply to our own lives. Let's break down what this incredible true story teaches us. The first lesson is simple but powerful. Every child deserves a chance. Every single one. Minji was born deaf. That's just a fact about her, like having brown eyes or black hair. But the way people treated her disability became the real problem. Her father saw her deafness as weakness, as failure, as something shameful. So he hid her away. He didn't give her the tools she needed to communicate. He didn't give her opportunities to learn and grow. For 5 years, Minji had all the potential in the world locked inside her. She was smart, creative, funny, and capable. But nobody knew it because nobody gave her a chance to show it. The moment Keisha gave her the right tools, sign language, communication, connection, Minji bloomed like a flower that had been kept in the dark, finally seeing sunlight. She wasn't magically fixed or cured. She was simply given what she needed to let her natural abilities shine. This happens everywhere, every day. There are children in your neighborhood, in your city, in your family who have incredible potential waiting to be unlocked. Maybe they have disabilities. Maybe they have learning differences. Maybe they just need someone to believe in them and give them the right kind of support. Every child has something special inside them. Every child can achieve amazing things if someone cares enough to help them find the right path. Don't write off any child. Don't assume that because they're different, they're less capable. Give them the tools they need, believe in them, and watch what happens. The second lesson is about what real courage actually looks like. Mr. Park spent 20 years thinking he was strong. He had power. He had money. He had men who followed his orders and rivals who feared him. He could hurt people who crossed him. He could make things happen with a phone call. In his world, that was strength. But he was terrified of his own daughter's disability. He was too afraid to face the truth about his failures as a father. He was too scared to admit he needed help. All that power, and he couldn't even look his own child in the eye. Keisha had nothing. No money. No power. No weapons. No connections to dangerous people. She was a cleaning lady who could barely pay her rent. By the world's standards, she was weak. But she had real courage. She spoke truth to a dangerous man when everyone else was too scared. She risked her job, her safety, maybe her life to tell Mr. Park he was wrong. She put her body between a child and kidnappers, even though she had no training and no chance of winning that fight. She nearly died protecting someone else's daughter. That's real courage. Not having power over others. not being the most dangerous person in the room. Real courage is doing the right thing even when you have everything to lose. It's standing up for what matters even when you're scared. It's protecting others even when it costs you dearly. You don't need to be rich or powerful or important to be brave. You just need to care enough about something bigger than yourself. That's what Keisha showed us. That's what she showed Mr. Park. And it changed everything. The third lesson is one that gives hope to everyone. It's never too late to change. Think about Mr. Park's situation. He spent 20 years building a criminal empire. He hurt people. He broke laws. He did things that can't be undone. He had blood on his hands from decisions he made. By any reasonable measure, he was too far gone, too deep in the criminal world, too much evil done to ever come back from it. But he changed. Completely. He walked away from everything he built. He risked his life to become a better person. He transformed from a crime boss into a legitimate businessman and a good father. Was it easy? No. It took 2 years of dangerous work. It required courage he didn't know he had. It meant testifying against people who wanted him dead. It meant giving up power and control and living in fear while he made the transition. But he did it because he finally saw a better way to live. Because someone showed him that change was possible. Because he wanted to be someone his daughter could be proud of. If he can change after 20 years of crime, anyone can change. Maybe you've made mistakes. Maybe you've hurt people. Maybe you've lived in ways you're not proud of. That's your past. It's part of your story. But it doesn't have to be your ending. You can choose differently starting today. It won't be easy. Real change never is. But it's possible. It's always possible if you truly want it and you're willing to do the hard work. The fourth lesson is about how kindness crosses all boundaries. Look at Keisha and Mr. Park. They should never have become friends. They had nothing in common. Different races. Different social classes. Different life experiences. One was rich, one was poor. One was powerful, one was powerless. One was a criminal, one was honest. They lived in completely different worlds. By all logic, they should have had their one interaction and never seen each other again. They should have stayed in their separate worlds, never connecting, never understanding each other. But kindness doesn't care about those divisions. Kindness doesn't look at someone's bank account or their background or their skin color. Kindness just sees another human being who needs help. Keisha saw a scared little girl who needed someone to care. That's all. She didn't see the daughter of a dangerous crime boss. She didn't see an opportunity or a risk or a complication. She just saw a child who deserved better. That simple act of kindness built a bridge between two worlds. It created a friendship that shouldn't exist but does. It proved that when you treat people with genuine care and respect, you can connect with anyone. We live in a world that tries to divide us constantly. Rich versus poor. Different races. Different backgrounds. Different beliefs. We're told to stay in our lanes, stick with our own kind, not trust people who are different from us. This story proves that's wrong. Kindness builds bridges across any gap. Genuine care breaks down any wall. When you see people as people first, not as categories or stereotypes or threats, amazing things become possible. The fifth lesson is about vulnerability and strength. Mr. Park thought showing emotion was weakness. He thought admitting his daughter had a disability made him look weak to his associates. He thought being vulnerable would destroy the power he had built. So he hid his feelings. He hid his daughter. He presented a hard, cold exterior to the world. But that hardness didn't make him strong. It made him empty. It made him alone. It made him miserable even though he was rich and powerful. His real strength only came when he allowed himself to be vulnerable. When he admitted he didn't know how to help his daughter. When he cried in that hospital room. When he confessed his failures and asked for help. When he opened himself up to change even though it was terrifying. That vulnerability. That willingness to admit he was wrong. That he needed help. That he was afraid. That's what gave him the strength to completely change his life. We're taught that vulnerability is weakness. That admitting you don't have all the answers makes you less than. That asking for help is shameful. That showing emotion is soft. But the truth is exactly the opposite. The strongest thing you can do is be honest about your weaknesses. The bravest thing you can do is admit when you're wrong. The most powerful thing you can do is ask for help when you need it. Being vulnerable doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And it opens the door to real growth, real change, real connection with others. The sixth and final lesson is that your past doesn't define your future. Keisha was a struggling single mother without a college degree, working 3 jobs just to survive. By the world's standards, her life was defined by poverty and struggle and missed opportunities. Her future looked like more of the same. Working until she was too old to work, never achieving her dreams, just surviving day by day. Mr. Park was a criminal with terrible things in his past. Actions that hurt people. Choices that destroyed lives. By any reasonable measure, he was defined by his crimes. His future looked like more violence, more crime, eventually dying violently or going to prison. But both of them rose above their circumstances. Keisha became the teacher she always dreamed of being. Mr. Park became a legitimate businessman and a good father. They both created completely new futures that had nothing to do with their pasts. Your past is part of your story. It's where you've been. It's what shaped you. But it's not where you have to stay. It's not all you can be. Maybe you grew up poor. Maybe you made mistakes. Maybe you hurt people. Maybe you failed at things that mattered. Maybe life knocked you down, and you're still struggling to get back up. That's your past. Those are your chapters 1 through 10. But you get to write chapter 11. You get to decide what comes next. You get to choose a different path starting right now. Your past doesn't have to be your prison. It can be your foundation for building something better. These 6 lessons aren't just interesting ideas. They're truths that changed real lives. They took a lonely little deaf girl and gave her a voice. They took a hardened criminal and turned him into a good father. They took a struggling single mother and helped her achieve her dreams. And these same lessons can change your life too, if you let them. So what's the most shocking part of this entire story? Is it that a black single mother helped a Korean crime boss's daughter? Is it that she risked her life for a child she barely knew? Is it that a powerful criminal completely changed his life? No. The most shocking part is simpler than all of that. The most shocking part is that it took someone from completely outside Mr. Park's world to show him what was right in front of him the whole time. The love of his daughter. The possibility of connection. The chance to be a real father instead of just a provider of expensive things. He had everything he thought mattered: money, power, respect through fear, control over his empire. But he was missing the one thing that actually did matter: a relationship with his own child. Keisha didn't bring anything magical to the situation. She didn't have special powers or secret knowledge. She just had a skill she was willing to share and a heart that couldn't ignore a child in need. That's it. That's all it took to change everything. We spend so much time thinking we need big, dramatic things to make a difference in the world. We think we need to be rich to help people. We think we need to be powerful to create change. We think we need to do something huge and impressive to matter. But this story proves that's not true. Keisha changed multiple lives forever with simple kindness and knowledge she was willing to share. She didn't have wealth. She didn't have connections. She didn't have power or influence or resources. She just had sign language skills that she learned years ago and a heart that saw a scared child who needed help. That's all. And it was enough. It was more than enough. Think about that. You don't need to be special to make a difference. You don't need to wait until you have more money or more time or more of anything. You already have something valuable to share. You already have the ability to change someone's life. Maybe it's a skill you have. Maybe it's knowledge you've gained. Maybe it's just your willingness to see people who are invisible to everyone else. Whatever it is, it matters. It can change everything for someone. The people who change our lives often come from the most unexpected places. They don't look like us. They don't come from our backgrounds. They don't live in our neighborhoods or move in our circles. Keisha and Mr. Park prove this truth. They came from completely different worlds, different races, different economic situations, different life experiences. On paper, they had absolutely nothing in common and no reason to ever connect. But when we're open to learning from everyone we meet, when we're willing to see people as people instead of categories or stereotypes, amazing things happen. Walls come down, bridges get built, lives get changed. Mr. Park could have dismissed Keisha as just the cleaning lady, someone beneath him, someone whose opinions didn't matter, someone to be ignored. Keisha could have seen Mr. Park as just a dangerous criminal, someone to fear, someone to avoid, someone who couldn't possibly teach her anything valuable. But they both chose differently. They chose to see each other as human beings. They chose to learn from each other. They chose to build a friendship that made no sense, but changed everything. What would our world look like if we all made that choice? If we stopped putting people in boxes based on their race or class or background, if we started seeing everyone as someone we could potentially learn from, connect with, care about, this story gives us a glimpse of that possibility. It shows us what happens when kindness wins over fear, when connection wins over division, when we choose to see what unites us instead of what separates us. Minji got her voice because one woman decided to care. That's the simple truth. A little girl who spent 5 years in silence and isolation can now communicate fluently, has friends, goes to school, and dreams of becoming a doctor. All because Keisha couldn't walk past a child in need. Mr. Park got his humanity back because that same woman showed him what real strength looks like. A man who spent 20 years becoming harder and colder and more closed off finally opened his heart. He cried. He changed. He became the father his daughter deserved. All because Keisha was brave enough to tell him the truth. Keisha fulfilled her dream of becoming a teacher because she never let poverty or struggle or disappointment kill the kindness in her heart. She could have become bitter. She could have focused only on her own survival and her own family. She could have walked past that office without checking on the crying sound. But she didn't. She stayed kind even when life was hard. She helped others even when she had almost nothing. She shared what she knew even when nobody was paying her. And eventually, that kindness came back to her in ways she never expected. We live in a world that constantly tries to divide us. The news tells us to fear people who are different from us. Social media puts us in bubbles with people who think exactly like we do. Politics tries to convince us that people on the other side are enemies, not neighbors. Race, class, religion, background. There are a million ways the world tries to separate us into groups that don't trust each other, don't talk to each other, don't help each other. But this story proves that what unites us is so much stronger than what divides us. We all want our children to be happy and healthy. We all want to matter. We all want to be better tomorrow than we are today. We all want to be loved and accepted for who we really are. Those desires cross every boundary. They connect a Korean crime boss and a black cleaning lady. They connect a deaf child and the woman who teaches her. They connect all of us if we're willing to see it. Sometimes the most shocking thing that can happen is the simplest thing. Two people from different worlds choosing to see each other as human beings. Choosing to care about each other. Choosing to help each other. Discovering they have more in common than they ever imagined. That's what happened here. And it changed everything. Here's what you need to remember from this story. Your kindness today might save someone's life tomorrow. The person you help might be someone who looks nothing like you, comes from a completely different background, lives in a totally different world. That doesn't matter. Help them anyway. You don't need power or money or influence to make a real difference. You just need to care enough to act. You need to see the people around you who are struggling, who are scared, who need help. You need to be willing to share what you have, even if what you have seems small. Keisha thought her sign language skills didn't matter anymore. She thought that part of her life was over, a dream she had to let go. But those skills, combined with her willingness to use them, changed multiple lives forever. What skills do you have? What knowledge do you carry? What experiences have you had that could help someone else? Don't dismiss what you have to offer. Don't think it's not enough. Share it. Use it. Let it make a difference. Look around you. Really look. See the people who are invisible to everyone else. The ones who are struggling quietly. The ones who need help but are too proud or too scared to ask for it. The ones who everyone else walks past without noticing. See them. Help them. You might just change their entire life. And in the process, you might change your own life too. This story started with a cleaning lady finding a scared deaf child in an empty office at 2 a.m. One moment. One decision to help instead of walking away. One choice to care about someone else's child. That one moment created ripples that are still spreading today. A little girl has a voice. A father has a relationship with his daughter. A family left a life of crime. A teacher achieved her dream. Two families that should never have met became deeply connected. All from one moment of kindness. What moment might you create today? What life might you change with a simple choice to care? What impossible friendship might you build by seeing someone as a person instead of a category? You have more power than you think. You have more to offer than you know. You can make a bigger difference than you imagine. You just have to be willing to try. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about kindness and courage and the power we all have to change lives, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the stories we're bringing you. Tomorrow we're dropping another incredible true story that will inspire you and make you see the world differently. You won't want to miss it. Your support means everything to us. Every view, every like, every comment, every share helps us bring you more powerful true stories like this one. You make this possible. You're part of this community, and we're grateful for you. To everyone watching from the United States, Australia, Mexico, France, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, Japan, Jamaica, and so many other countries around the world, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about these stories. Thank you for being part of something that spreads hope and kindness instead of division and fear. One moment of kindness changed everything for two families who had no business ever meeting. One woman's decision to care created a ripple effect that's still spreading years later. What ripple will you create? What life will you change? What impossible thing will you make possible just by choosing to care? The world needs more people like Keisha. People who see a need and meet it. People who share what they have. People who treat everyone with dignity and kindness regardless of who they are or where they come from. The world needs you to be that person. Starting today. Starting right now. Because you never know, your next simple act of kindness might just change everything.